hate to be a little cliche, but it's probably Johnny Be Good, right? I mean, that's the song everybody knows. It's the song that gets played over and over again. And in many ways, the song was sort of a autobiographical song about him and Johnnie Johnson, rather, who played with him, the piano player, because it was about a little kid who just wants to make music and who's sitting there by the railroad tracks playing his guitar, trying to get better all the time. And that was Chuck Berry, someone who, you know, rock and roll didn't exist when he started, right? He just wanted to play guitar, write songs, and entertain people. And he found a way to connect and help create rock and roll, what it is today.
150 in rock and roll.
Right. No, that is true.
You don't have rock and roll without Chuck Berry. He was really one of the originators of the art form. You know, there were a lot of people in the 1950s when he started doing a lot of different types of sounds. They would take a little bit of rhythm and blues, a little bit of country music, you know, a little bit of gospel. Chuck Berry took all that and found a way to really bring it together. And he was really, in many ways, the first true rock and roll star. I think he and Elvis Presley were the first two who kind of figured out a way to mix those things together. But what was incredible about Chuck Berry was his guitar playing was monumental. You know, he took the kind of jazz sounds of Charlie Christian and other great players, found a way to make that into something raucous and exciting for the audiences. His performances were over the top. He'd dance around, he'd do his famous duck walk, he'd get the audience in call and response with him. And he was an incredible songwriter. And I think that's something that you can see that element really has a direct line to today. So John Lennon famously said, right, if you look up the beginning of rock and roll, it's Chuck Berry, right? I mean, he was the definition for it. And the Beatles, many people don't realize, started as a cover band in many ways. They were playing gigs in Germany and Hamburg and throughout England, and they were doing songs by other artists. For them, they were playing Chuck Berry songs. They were playing Roll Over Beethoven. Those songs taught the Beatles how to make rock and roll. And everything that Paul McCartney and John Lennon learned as songwriters, they learned by playing Chuck Berry's music and, you know, Elvis's music and Little Richard and all that. But for them, I think Chuck Berry's, again, energy as a performer, his incredible ability as a lyricist, and his, you know, guitar playing, which I know is something John Lennon and George Harrison, you know, looked at all the time. They wanted to sound like Chuck Berry. They wanted to play a guitar that looked like Chuck Berry's guitar.
I don't know, just glad I'm hearing more people inside from being out there.
Any excuse to go to the rock hall?
This building is here so we remember the legacy and the history of all these artists, not just as history, but as something that's living, right? That is music that we can still throw on and listen to a Chuck Berry song tonight. Of course, I did that yesterday. As soon as I heard, I threw on some of my Chuck Berry albums at home. That music will be with us forever. And it will continue to influence people forever, even if they're not listening to a Chuck Berry record. That's the great thing, right? You can go back and listen to a newer artist who's been influenced by Chuck, but you're still going to hear that influence moving forward. And again, here at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we continue to honor him and his legacy. You know, the very first person inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and that will live on forever.
When I was a young kid, listening to stuff on a little jukebox little thing in a diner and stuff, and Chuck Berry's music was always on there, you know. So it's, you know, just one of those people that we're losing more and more of every day, you know, that age group, you know.